بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to have our fourth session on Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam in the Qur'an. Inshallah, in this session we study the incident of destroying the idols. So if we can have Surah Al-Ankabut please on the screen. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Ankabut verse 16 says that we sent Ibrahim when he told his people, worship Allah. Wa Ibrahim. So one of the people that was sent by Allah was Ibrahim. إذ قال لقوم اعبدوا الله واتقوه ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. So he had this conversation with his people, maybe not one, maybe this was a kind of series of talks and conversations that he had with his people, and he said basically that there is no reason to worship these idols. He said, إنما تعبدون من دون الله أوثانا وتخلقون إفكا. Verse 17. إن الذين تعبدون من دون الله لا يملكون لكم رزقا فابتغوا عند الله الرزق واعبدوه واشكروا له إليه ترجعون. He said, you are worshipping something that you have created yourself. Verse 17, if you can. Yeah. So you are worshipping Awthan. Wathan is the idol that one creates by his own hands. So how can you worship something which is made by yourself? You are creating ifk, is a lie, is a fake news. So something which has no reality, you make a statue and want to give reality to it and then worship it. You should worship something that has either created you or has some perfection which is very high. How can you create stones and woods or etc. that you have given them a form? If you want these idols to give you sustenance, they don't have any sustenance to give. لا يملكون لكم رزقا. They don't have any sustenance to offer. فابتغوا عند الله الرزق. If you want sustenance, seek it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَاعْبُدُوهُ. Create him who has created you and who is provider, and also to whom you have to be grateful. وَاشْكُرُوا لَهُ. Ibrahim was a grateful person. We talked about his quality of gratitude. شَاكِرًا لَأَنْعُمِهِ. You remember. And also you are returning to him. In dunya these idols cannot do anything for you. In akhirah also they cannot do anything. Your dunya all is coming from Allah, and your akhirah also depends on him. So very logically rationally he challenged this idea of worshipping idols. And then he said, وَإِن تُكَذِّبُوا, and if you don't accept the truth, if you reject, you are not the only people. It's not unfortunately surprising, it's unfortunately sad reality. It's repeated. فَقَدْ كَذَّبَ أُمَمٌ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. There have been also nations who have rejected. وَمَا عَلَى الرَّسُولِ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ. There is nothing upon the messenger except to make sure that has clear delivery of message. Balaghul mubin. This mubin is very important. In some lectures about tabligh, we have reflected on the concept of balagh and balagh mubin. He also had maybe other arguments about resurrection, etc. Then the answer is very unfortunately irrational. If we go to verse 71 of Surah Shu'ara, Surah Shu'ara, verse 71, we find that they say, we worship idols without any embarrassment, without feeling, shy. They are happily and maybe proudly saying that we worship idols. And every day we pay attention to them. And respectfully, or with maximum respect, we worship them. Surah Shu'ara, verse 71. So it's a kind of failure to seriously engage with what Ibrahim said. Maybe it came from one ear and went out from another ear. You see, قالوا نعبد أصناما فنظل لها عاكفين. We worship idols and continuously we are showing respect to them and worshipping them, etc. Ibrahim alayhi salam said, هل يسمعونكم إذ تدعون. When you call them, do they hear you? Do you yourself? I'm not saying what's my judgment. I want you to refer to your fitra and your reason and heart. These these idols that you worship, when you call them, do they hear you? أو ينفعونكم أو يضرون. Can they benefit you or harm you? They are totally useless. Neither they can benefit nor they can harm. They cannot benefit so that you expect their help. They cannot harm so that you have fear from them. The answer was not that yes, they can hear us, they can benefit us, they can harm if we are not careful. No. They said we don't think, in my words, basically they said, we don't want to think about these things. It's enough that our parents and forefathers were worshipping these idols. قالوا بل وجدنا آباءنا كذلك يفعلون. We found our fathers doing this. We just copy them. We just imitate them. So, this kind of conversation is happening between Ibrahim and his people, in addition to the conversation he had with Azar. And Ibrahim was saying how Allah is in charge of everything, and all the help and all the benefits come from him, and these are useless, your own creatures that cannot do anything. Then Qur'an also mentions that Ibrahim alayhi salam had a very special story with the idols directly. So maybe when he saw that these people don't listen and don't pay attention, don't reflect, maybe he tried to give them a harder, a more difficult lesson. There was a day that they had a kind of feast and celebration for their idols. They used to prepare some food and put in their temple next to the idols to be blessed, and go outside city and then come back and eat from the blessed food. In their idea, this food was blessed because it was left with these idols. So when they were leaving the city, they had invited also Ibrahim. And Quran says that, if we can go to Surah Safat, please. Verses 88, 89 of Surah Safat. Surah Safat interestingly brings the story of Prophet Ibrahim after Prophet Nuh. First mentions the story of Nuh, and then in the verse 83, Allah connects the story of Nuh to a story of Ibrahim and says, وَإِنَّ مِن شِيعَتِهِ لَإِبْرَاهِيمَ. This is the connection that Allah makes. One of the followers of Nuh was Ibrahim. Although, according to some Mufassirin, there was 2,600 years gap between Nuh and Ibrahim. He's a progeny of Nuh, and he has followership of Nuh, and this is enough to connect. Because when you follow someone, neither a space can separate you nor time. In some lectures, we have discussed this in the light of saying of Amir al-Mu'mineen, when one of his companions after a battle said, I wish my brother was also with us to witness this victory. And Amir al-Mu'mineen said, Ahawa akhika ma'ana. Is his desire to be with us? Does he like to be with us? Is he one of us basically? He said yes. Then Imam said, لَقَدْ شَهِدَنَا. So he was present. He was not physically present, but we are not talking about presence of physical body. Kuffar were also present, or in the battles of Prophet, or Amir al-Mu'mineen enemies. Muslims of different ideas were present. It's the presence of heart and mind with love, with openness, that makes you really present. So he said, لَقَدْ شَهِدَنَا. And then Imam said, وَالشَّهِدَ مَعَنَا أَقْوَامٌ فِي أَصْلَابِ الرِّجَالِ سَيَرْعَفُ بِهِمُ الزَّمَانِ. Not only your brother who is living right now, but he is not just here. So we have distance. Also, people that have not yet been born, they are with us. So neither a space nor time can separate. Ibrahim was 2,600 years almost, according to some Mufassirin, after Nuh, but Allah considers them connected and says one of the followers of Nuh was Ibrahim. إذ جاء ربه بقلب سليم إذ قال لأبيه وقومه ماذا تعبدون أئفكا آلهة دون الله تريدون فما ظنكم برب العالمين. Then our story is from this part. It seems that they had invited him or expected him to join them فَنَظَرَ نَظْرَةً فِي النُّجُومِ. He looked at the stars. Why he looked at the stars? Maybe because these people were very much interested in stars, basically following things that they were understanding from stars. Even as I told you, from observing stars, they expected someone will be born who would defeat Namrud. We said about worshipping, stars, moon, etc. We talked about the stars were very important for them. So Ibrahim alayhi salam looked at the stars. They got the impression that he is telling something based on observation of the stars, so they had respect for what he's going to say. فَقَالَ إِنِّي سَقِيمٌ. He said, I am ill. I am ill. Meaning, he was really ill, but he looked at the stars also, maybe so that they developed the impression that he is also taking a kind of inspiration from stars, that when he is ill, he shouldn't travel or go out. So, or maybe he's ill from, like say, I'm sick, from what, the idol worshippers were doing. Anyway, they realized that he is ill, and stars also suggest this. فَتَوَلَّوْا عَنْهُ مُدْبِرِينَ. They left him. They didn't insist that you must join. They had the habit that everyone should leave, no one should remain in the city. But they left Ibrahim. فَرَاغَ إِلَىٰ آلِهَتِهِمْ. Ibrahim alayhi salam found this very good opportunity. Now he can address directly these idols, their gods. And as I said, there were lots of food brought by these people and left there to be blessed. فَقَالَ أَلَا تَأْكُلُونَ. He gave them chance to defend themselves if they want to speak, if they have any ability to speak. So that no one says, they were able to speak. Ibrahim, of course, knew that they are not going to speak, but for the lovers of these idols, don't you eat? مَا لَكُمْ لَا تَنْطِقُونَ. Why you don't answer? Why you don't talk? They were just, some physical objects, made by these people. Even it is said that their idols used to be like stars, because they worship the stars as well. They had a great love for stars. فَرَاغَ عَلَيْهِمْ ضَرْبًا بِالْيَمِينِ. Then he started destroying them, and with a strong strike with right hand, he attacked them and destroyed them. Then what happened was that he left the hammer with the biggest one, the greatest among them. He left the temple or the place of these idols and went home, waiting for them to return. When the day of feast finished and they went back to the idols to take their food and eat and show respect as well, they saw what's very different scenario, different scene compared to what they expected. So if you go to Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 59, we find the rest of the story there. Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 59. They said, who has done this to our gods? قالوا من فعل هذا بآلهتنا. They found that they were all made to pieces except the bigger one. because Ibrahim wanted them to reflect and maybe return to their mind and heart and fitrah. They said, who has done this with, to our lords, to our gods? Whoever he is a zalim, he's an unjust person. Then some people said, سمعنا فتى يذكرهم يقال له إبراهيم. Some of them say that we heard there was a young man who was mentioning our idols, not in a favorable way. His name is Ibrahim. This refers to actually what we have in the verse 57. If you go a little bit before verse 57, Ibrahim alayhi salam said, وَتَاللَّهِ لَأَكِيدَنَّ أَصْنَامَكُمْ بَعْدَ أَن تُوَلُّوا مُدْبِرِينَ. He said, by Allah, I am going to plan something against your idols. Now that you don't listen, you turn away, or meaning turning away from the truth and from evidence, or turning away from me and going out anyway. Some people say maybe Ibrahim said this very quietly to himself, but it seems no, he said it very clearly, because later, as we said, they say سمعنا فتى يذكرهم. So they had heard that Ibrahim has warned them that I'm going to do something with these idols. So if you go back to verse 59, قالوا من فعل هذا بآلهتنا إنه لمن الظالمين. Who has done this to our lords? He is one of the oppressors. Then the answer, some of them replied that we heard a young person. Ibrahim is said, it is very interesting, at that time was just 16 years old. Some say 26 years old. So he was really young, but very mature. Maybe these people, in order to say he is naive, he has no experience, they said young. We heard a young person saying this. Because fata sometimes means a noble person. They didn't have this meaning in mind. They wanted to say someone naive. So, يقال له إبراهيم. His name was Ibrahim. قالوا فأتوا به على أعين الناس لعلهم يشهدون. They said we need people to offer testimony. So bring him before the people's eyes so that they may bear witness. First, we want to question him and see what he says, and then also people should see what type of sentence he's receiving. So they said, قالوا أأنت فعلت هذا بآلهتنا يا إبراهيم. Have you yourself done this to our gods, our lords, O Ibrahim? They didn't dare mentioning destroying. It seems they avoided talking about what Ibrahim had done. They said, have you done this? They didn't want even to mention. They were so afraid. Have you done this to our lords, O Ibrahim? قال بل فعله كبيرهم هذا فاسألوهم إن كانوا ينطقون. Ibrahim alayhi salam said that rather this is done by his bigger one. Ask him if he speaks. This is not a false claim. Mufassirin have discussed this. They say this is not a lie. Lie is when you say something that may deceive the other party. Please listen very carefully. Lie is when you say something that keeps the other party away from truth and maybe even send him farther away from the truth by deceiving him. Ibrahim is not deceiving them. Ibrahim is guiding them and bringing them closer to the truth by something that they know themselves. He doesn't give them false facts. This is a kind of burhan khulf. You say something which is not true, so that they themselves realize that this is not true. Of course, there are different interpretations of bal, but one is this way. You said, ask them, of course, if they speak. So, it is at this point that they realized, we are worshipping idols that they cannot speak. They cannot do anything. We ourselves know that they could not have destroyed themselves, or the bigger one cannot have destroyed the others. We know that these are useless. We know that these have no power, no ability to do anything. فَرَجَعُوا إِلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. This رَجَعُوا إِلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ is very important Quranic expression. To return to oneself. Sometimes we lose ourselves. We go away from our fitra and aql. We need something to bring us back to ourselves. We need self-recognition. We need self-knowledge. We need to go back to ourselves. We can forget ourselves. لا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم. We can also go away from ourselves. At this point, they were awakened, but unfortunately it was short. When they returned to themselves, they said, فَقَالُوا إِنَّكُمْ أَنْتُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. They told to each other, Ibrahim is not zalim. You yourself are zalim, doing zulm to yourself by worshipping idols and not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But unfortunately, ثُمَّ نُكِسُوا عَلَى رُؤُوسِهِمْ. But then again, what happened was, they were made upside down. They were not following their aql. They unfortunately mankus, upside down. They said again to Ibrahim, but not by admission of mistakes. No, by insisting on their wrong position. You know that these idols don't speak. لَقَدْ عَلِمْتَ مَا هَؤُلَاءِ يَنْتِقُونَ. Why you tell us, فَاسْأَلُوهُمْ إِنْ كَانُوا يَنْتِقُونَ? Ask them if they speak. They don't speak. You know that they don't speak. If they don't speak, why you worship them? No, they don't think about that side. They just blame Ibrahim. Why you tell us ask them? We don't ask them because they cannot speak. We ask you. قال أفتعبدون من دون الله ما لا ينفعكم شيئا ولا يضركم. Do you worship other than Allah? What? He doesn't say man. He says ma. Ma is used for non-intelligent. Do you worship something that those things that cannot benefit you, cannot harm you? أُفٍّ لَكُمْ وَلِمَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. He showed his dissatisfaction with them and with their gods that they worship. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Don't you think? So they knew that idols cannot do anything. whether they like it or not, and therefore the bigger one cannot have destroyed the rest. And with this attitude of Ibrahim, even if he had not destroyed, with this kind of answer that Ibrahim gave them, they thought they have to get rid of Ibrahim. قالوا حرقوه وانصروا آلهتكم إن كنتم فاعلين. They said, you must burn Ibrahim and help your God if you are really going to do anything. This is what you have to do. If you don't want to do anything, that's not acceptable. You have to do something. If you are going to do something, this is what you have to do. حرقوه, burn him, not just kill him. You have to burn him because you have to be severely punishing him, killing him with pain, and give it kind of lesson to everyone not to do the same as Ibrahim. وَانْصُرُوا آلِهَتَكُمْ, help your gods. This concept of helping God, we also have this, but it's totally different. We say, إِن تَنْصُرُوا اللَّهَ يَنْصُرْكُمْ. If you help Allah, Allah will help you. But what we mean by helping Allah is not really helping Allah as such. Allah doesn't need our help. Who are we to offer him help? Yeah? We don't have anything to give back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to add to his power. Everything comes from him. So when we say in tansurullah, it means that in tansuru deen Allah, if you help divine religion, divine cause, which is indeed helping yourself in true sense. When you help Allah, you are helping yourself. You are helping humanity. Allah doesn't need our help. Therefore, immediately we say Allah is going to help you and make your feet firm and steady. But here, they literally had to help their gods because their gods didn't have any power. And they had to be helped and even protected. They could not even help themselves. They could not even protect themselves, let alone protect people. So they said, you must help your gods. So they decided to make Ibrahim a lesson for everyone else that would question idols. And it is said that they decided to collect so much of wood and logs that was enough for killing, many people. Even it is said that, for example, some women that were making, for example, wool at home, they were offering money to buy wood and add. Some people who were ill, then they were making wasiyah in their will that if he died, for example, some wood, because they took some time to collect lots of wood. For 40 days, they were working on this. 40 days. Some people who were in need of, some problems to be solved, they had, some hajat, they were making nadr, vow, that if our hajat is granted, we add to the wood to burn Ibrahim. So in this way, it was like a kind of ignorant, sacred cause for them. And as you know, they were not able to take him close to the fire. They decided to throw Ibrahim into fire by using a special equipment that normally they were using in wars, which is called manjaniq. to throw him. In the war sometimes they used to throw burning barrels, whatever, to destroy the castle, etc. In hadith, in some hadith, we have that at that time Jibreel ala nabiyana wa alihi wa ala هذا الملك المقرب عليه السلام, he said, Jibreel said to Ibrahim, do you need any help? What can I do for you? Ibrahim said, amma ilayka fala. I don't need anything from you. If it is you, I don't want anything from you. Because Ibrahim is a man of God, Tawheed. For him, even asking someone who is close to God is not acceptable, because he never asked anyone other than God. He said, okay, at least ask Allah. He said, Allah knows about my situation. His knowledge is enough. This is not at our level. We should ask Allah, we should pray, we should not say, Allah knows, so I don't ask. If Jibreel comes to your help, ask him for help. But Ibrahim is in different level. So, as we say, Hasanatul Abrar, Sayyatul Muqarrabin. Ibrahim alayhi salam made this dua, but not by asking. It is said that he said, Ya Ahadu, Ya Ahad. Ya Samadu, Ya Samad. Ya man lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. Basically, Allah inspired him, of course. Surah Tawheed was put by Allah in the mouth of Ibrahim. Very close to Surah Tawheed. Not exactly, but it's Ya Ahadu, Ya Ahad. We say Qul huwa Allahu Ahad. Ya Samadu, Ya Samad. We say Allahu Samad. Ya man lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. We say lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakun lahu. So this is inspired by Allah. And then he said, Tawakkaltu ala Allah. I put my trust in Allah. He didn't ask for anything. He was 100% sure that Allah is taking care of him in the best possible way. He put his trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So people happily threw him into fire, and they were going to enjoy more, perhaps hearing cries of Ibrahim. They had made themselves prepared to hear that Ibrahim, who is, na'udhu billah, in their opinion, very stubborn, talking only about God, not showing any compromise. Now we are going to hear his cries and, regret. But it came actually quite against their expectations. Allah got involved. قُلْنَا يَا نَارُ كُونِي بَرْدًا وَسَلَامًا عَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ. We said, O fire, be cool and safe for Ibrahim. Bardan wa salam. Not cool, so much cool that Ibrahim will be frozen. No, nice cool. It is said that he felt a little bit cold, but not being frozen, not developing any cold or catching cold, etc. No, it was peaceful, nice. Like in summer you go to a cold place to enjoy yourself. So in some sources they say this was actually, and I am not surprised, the most comfortable and the calmest day of Ibrahim in his entire life. And it must be like that when Allah says, Kuni bardan wa salaman ala Ibrahim. Allah didn't say this every day to the air and environment. So this was his best day. So something which was supposed to be the end of life of Ibrahim and very miserable became the best day of Ibrahim. And it was supposed to be the day of victory for them. It became very kind of notorious defeat for them. They kept whispering to each other about what has happened. Even it is said that Namrud said, I see Ibrahim is alive, maybe I am mistaken. And he went to a height and then he said, yes, Ibrahim is alive. And then it is said that he called Ibrahim. He said, oh Ibrahim, your Lord is truly great, and he has so much of power that he has made barrier between you and fire. Now I want to sacrifice 4,000 qurbani, 4,000 animals for your Lord. And according to this source, it is said that Ibrahim said, your qurbani will not be accepted before you have iman. You have to have iman. Qurbani is not something that would be by itself helping. It's not the flesh and the blood that help. It's taqwa in your heart that help, as the Qur'an says. لن ينال الله لحومها ولا دماؤها ولكن يناله التقوى منكم. But Namrud said, no. If I believe my kingdom, my power will be finished. Some people who saw this became faithful. But unfortunately, many people didn't become faithful. Then we have a conversation between Namrud and Ibrahim alayhi salam about his claim that he is also God and he can give life and this, etc. And then migration of Ibrahim, we inshallah discuss next session. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.
اللهم صل على محمد وآله